Welcome to Living the Music. Today we're going to look at the top 10 revolutionary moments in rock history. Now, this is just my list. I don't claim it's absolutely definitive, but hopefully it stimulates your thought, and love to hear your take on it. If you would delete some of mine or have some to add, I'm all ears. Let's talk about this, because I think it's an interesting thing to consider. And my list, as you'll see, I'm going to do this in chronological order. I start in 1957 and I end in 1991. And there's something I'm going to say about that at the end, in terms of the future of rock. But that'll come a little bit later. So let's dive in here. Just going through these top 10 revolutionary moments in rock history. Now, you could start before this 1957, but I'm going to start with Elvis. I know there were others before him, but I think Elvis really took rock into the stratosphere in the consciousness of people, especially in the United States. And although I think his first recorded material was 1956, I'm going to point to 1957's Jailhouse Rock. Both the song, the album, the movie. I think that, let's just say that song in particular, just captured the raucous, rhythmic spirit of rock, and it just swept up the youth of America in enthusiasm for this. They just got off on this. I suppose it's to some extent the veterans of World War II, and as they got a little bit older, and then soon enough their children, and especially the youth of America really got turned on to bopping and rocking with Elvis. Now, we look back on it now and it looks rather clean and innocent, but at the time it was revolutionary. It had like a sexual nature to it, undertone, if you will, but it proved to be very popular, and it got rock and roll going in a real strong momentum. Rock sort of followed the Elvis model for a while. Let's say the charismatic lead guy, and in some cases they had outside songwriters helping. Now I'm going to go to number 2, and has to be the Beatles for me. And I'm going to point to 1964 and their appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show in America. They were big already in England and maybe parts of Europe, but let's face it, if they didn't hit it big in America, we wouldn't be remembering them nearly the way we do today. So 1964, Ed Sullivan. The eyeballs of America were glued to their television sets, and the Beatles killed it. They passed their audition, let's say, with flying colors, and America was hooked on Beatles, and the Beatlemania was off and running, and rock and roll now was just exploding in the popular culture. All right, number 3, we're going to go 1 year later to Dylan going electric at the Newport Folk Festival. Why I think this is important and to some extent revolutionary is because Dylan had been a folk star before this, and he was a very thoughtful, poetic lyric writer as much as anything. And by going electric, by taking his poetry and putting it into rock, I think that symbolized for the industry that, hey, you can do serious work. You can really do thoughtful, introspective, and also world commentary kind of material. It doesn't all just have to be boy loves girl kind of thing. So I think that message was heard loud and clear in the rock community, and a lot of people took him up on that, from Neil Young and eventually like Jackson Browne and hundreds of others. Number 4, most revolutionary moments in rock history. I'm going to go with Sgt. Pepper, the Beatles' release of Sgt. Pepper in 1967, May of 1967. And although there were antecedents in terms of complete albums that were an art form, like Rubber Soul from the Beatles and Pet Sounds from Beach Boys and Revolver from the Beatles, I still think Sgt. Pepper, because of its popularity and its quasi-concept nature, it really stands out as a watershed moment in the album as an art form. And I think definitely from Sgt. Pepper on, musicians got the message that we don't have to only focus on having pop singles on the radio. We can focus on making this album from side A to side B an art form in and of itself, a statement in and of itself, where the flow of the album and all the pieces fitting together into a whole statement is worthy of attention. So obviously that has continued for a hell of a long time, and thankfully so. Number 5 in our most revolutionary moments in rock history, we're going to go with the Woodstock Festival. So this takes place in the summer of 1969. And of course, famously, it's not famous that I live in Woodstock, but living here in Woodstock, you come to understand, and you must know that the festival didn't actually take place in Woodstock. It was going to, and they called it Woodstock, but it actually ended up about an hour and a half away in a town called Bethel. The Woodstock Festival was revolutionary in that, in a sense, for a couple of reasons. So one thing is, like I said, with Elvis and beyond, you had the idea of rock and roll and sex, and there was a fusion there. By the time of Woodstock and culminating in Woodstock, you had a third element called drugs. So now the famous sex, drugs, and rock and roll really coalesced. And you had the whole hippie movement going by that time very strongly. You had Timothy Leary with LSD talking about tune in, turn on, drop out. And Woodstock was the ultimate expression of all of that. And on top of that, you had these incredible performances. The most noteworthy to me, I think, is Jimi Hendrix's performance. And I want to just kind of flag his guitar playing for a moment, because I think the ferocity that he brought to his guitar playing was like nobody else before him, and in some ways like nobody else since. And although he did things before and after Woodstock, I think that may have been quite a peak moment for him, and captured a certain sound that's in some ways the essence of rock. I think Pete Townsend talked about the jet engine as a modern a symbol of modernity in some ways, and rock music and especially that rock guitar coming out of that gigantic amplified set of amplifiers plus the PA or whatever. You turn that electric guitar up loud, and then you add Jimi Hendrix's own combination of sweetness and love and thoughtfulness and anger and ferocity, and you've got a sound like people never heard before. Okay, number 6 on our list of most revolutionary moments in rock history in chronological order. We're going to go with Black Sabbath's debut in 1970, February of 1970. So there you go. I mean, already this is taking the ferocity of rock to another level. You'd had semblances of heavy metal before Black Sabbath, but this Black Sabbath was the album, the self-titled album was, again, its own statement in as an album. All those songs kind of go together. Although it was recorded very quickly in 1 or 2 days, I think, they had taken their time on some of this writing, and they'd honed a certain sound that took rock to a darker place, and it made it okay to really go heavy and really go dark. And heavy metal, it's not everybody's thing, but look, millions of kids have been turned on to music through heavy metal, and they've found an outlet for their pent up anger and frustration. So I think that definitely was a watershed moment. Number 7, we're gonna go several years to 1977, and the Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks. So this comes out basically November of 1977. This is the whole punk movement, punk rock, and punk rock was telling the old established rock that you used to be rebellious, you used to be the cutting edge, but now you've become corporate, you've become part of the system, and you're sort of boring. And we're going to point to that and say, it's time for a change. It's time for a new voice. So the punk rockers came in and said, look, screw all of this intricacy in the playing. Let's get down to the brass tacks, the real heart of the matter. And it's about energy. It's about revolution. It's about pointing at the establishment and criticizing the establishment. And it's about not having a barrier between performer and audience. It's about performer and audience being on equal footing in a sense. So that was an important moment for rock to kind of wake up and not get too carried away with its own pomposity. Of most revolutionary moments in rock history in chronological order, I'm going to point to Van Halen's debut. So this was in February of 1978, and Eddie Van Halen is that only other guitarist that I would note, other than Jimi Hendrix, that revolutionized rock music in his own way. Now, he had his own sound. Nobody's ever been able to replicate it exactly. As many people will say, it's really in your fingers and in your soul. It's not about the equipment. But Eddie had a certain way of playing with the tapping, but it was also, again, his spirit. And he inaugurated, I think, this whole movement of real shredding, show-off guitar. Again, not that there wasn't any of that before him, but he took it to another level that I think we can all recognize. And, I think he did it with integrity, and he had a lot of fun as well, a lot of exuberance. Some might say that a lot of people have abused this shredding type of guitar playing, and it becomes repetitive and to some extent soulless. But he took rock guitar to another level. He was the second absolute genius, taking off from Jimi Hendrix. And by 1981, this is our next revolutionary moment. I'm going to point to the release of In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. That's right, In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, January of 1981. Why? Because this popularized that gated drum sound which you just have to put that album on when he gets to the big drum part. It's got this certain reverb booming sound to it that became the sound of the 80s, and you had to have that sound on your album or your song, or you couldn't get on the radio. You wouldn't really be respected on MTV. Everybody had to use this sound. And although we may look back on it now and think about 80s music as somewhat dated, well, still, it's a whole decade of rock history that went down that road. So I still think it's an important moment. To me, a revolutionary moment. Whether it's one you approve of or not, I still think it happened, and I still think it was crucial. Now, just for historical accuracy, I know that In the Air Tonight was not the first version of that drum sound. Phil did create it, though, but it's actually on Peter Gabriel's third album where you first hear this sound. But although that was an underground hit, it can't compare to the popularity of In the Air Tonight. So that's why I'm pointing to that song in particular. All right, and then number 10 on our list, and the final one on our list, which we got to talk about why that is, we're going to have to go with Nevermind by Nirvana. So this is September of 1991. Smells Like Teen Spirit especially just blows up on the airwaves. It blows up on MTV. I can remember many rock star at that time saying that when they saw that video, they knew it was over for them. They knew their career was in serious jeopardy, and they were going to have to play a different game. They were in some cases going from stadiums and arenas, and they would be in clubs for quite some time. So Kurt Cobain and the guys from Nirvana, they akin to punk in a sense. They said, "Look, we need to get rid of all this pomposity, all this extraneous, well-produced kind of music, glossy commerciality. We need to get back to reckless abandon in our songs, and we got to have something to say. We got to be able to commentate on the human experience, and in some cases, the relationships and the world at large. We need to do it with some thoughtfulness and some oblique lyrics, and we're going for authenticity here. We're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to act like we're all world beaters. We're just struggling guys like anybody else, and we're not afraid to say that. So we call that kind of music grunge. That ends up taking over the airwaves for many years. You get Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and many others that followed in Nirvana's footsteps. And that was really, I would say, the last great gasp of rock. It was kind of the last movement, at least so far, that would be revolutionary. Now, interestingly, and this is sort of an addendum to this video, it was in 1989 that Straight Outta Compton came out from NWA, and in particular, F the Police, if I may say it that way. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that was a huge cultural moment. And in some ways, ever since then, although for a while there you had the competition of Nirvana, but in the long run, it's been rap and hip hop. That's really where kids look nowadays for their musical entertainment. That's where they get their messaging from, if you will. It's not really the rock stars. It's more like I say, the hip hop stars that are really the the winners in music. Yeah, I mean, you know, nowadays you have Taylor Swift, and you have the let's say modern country movement, and so you know they're selling records, no doubt. But I still say that in terms of being cutting edge, it's really on the hip hop side, and so there you go. That's my top 10 revolutionary moments in rock. I, for one, hope there is an 11th, and I've been waiting a long time, and I'm ready for it. So if you're out there and you have any way of bringing this into being, please do. If not, we can at least commentate on it and maybe bring it into being indirectly. One can only hope, right? That's not to say there's not great music. I'm not saying rock's dead, nothing like that. I still enjoy a lot of new music. I just think there's still a chance for a new revolutionary moment where a new era is brought into being, and we don't know what that's going to look like. We won't know it until we see it. But at least for me, I kind of know it that I haven't seen it yet. So I'm still hopeful, and I would say despite it all, I am optimistic. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Please hit the like button if you don't mind. It'll only take you a couple seconds to do so. If you want to go further and leave us a comment, that would be wonderful. And I do respond to all comments. And if you like this kind of discussion of sort of you know analyzing music in an in-depth way, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Love to have you aboard. All right, so until the next video, take care.